Hi, welcome to another Insider Notebook here at Bleacher Report with James Palmer. I'm excited because it is noon on a Wednesday. That means we're chatting with you here. And next week, we're going to talk all sorts of trade deadline stuff. I think I'm going to be on almost every single day at this time. So we'll try to follow everything that's happening with kind of the latest rumors. Are they rumors? Is there fire where there's smoke? Is it real? We'll try to break all of that down. I'll also try to answer as many of your questions as possible in between each and every one of these topics. We always do that, and you see them on the side of the screen there. We'll start with Maxx Crosby and the Cowboys. There's actually, we know it's a wet blanket on that a little bit, but there is information there that you need to pay attention to. What's happening with some other big names that could potentially be on the move or not on the move, or why their names are being brought up and what's their future before November 4th, which is the trade deadline, 4 o'clock Eastern. Nightmare in New York. It was not a great week for either team in New York. Woody Johnson had some comments yesterday at the owners' meetings. We'll talk about those. I was at that game between the Giants and the Broncos, one for the ages at the end. A bit of a nightmare scenario for Brian Burns and Jackson Dart and Brian Dable and that company. Also, changes in Miami. Where are things headed right now for Mike McDaniel and everybody else in that building as they're searching for answers after a lackluster performance? Detroit's success, we got to throw some positivity out there, right? Why we saw such a dominant Lions team that was shorthanded, specifically in the secondary, play so well, and what does that mean for their chances out of the NFC? Also, Drake May and Bo Nix, a couple of second-year quarterbacks that I want to break down a little bit for a variety of reasons and what we're seeing from them. So remember, jump in this chat right here. We'll answer them in between each and every one of these topics. All right, let's start with Maxx Crosby and the trade rumors. Now, it got out that Jerry Jones had made a call trying to see if Maxx Crosby was available. Pete Carroll made sure, and John Spytek, that they talked with Max and were essentially saying, you're not going anywhere. We're not trading you. You're going to stay here. Fine. That's not a shocking aspect. You have to remember, Maxx Crosby is the face of that franchise. Very rarely is a defensive player the face of your franchise. Oftentimes it's a skill guy or the quarterback, but he is the face of the Raiders. He is the heartbeat of that team. I talked to people in that building. He's the Pied Piper in terms of workouts and off-season workouts and scheduling themselves and guys just following his lead. The way he carries himself is exactly what Pete Carroll wants out of that building. And he also just got paid last year. You can't be the face of the franchise, just get paid last year, and then want to get traded. First off, he doesn't want to get traded. I think it's the only way something would change is if Max approached the organization and actually said, I got to reboot my stream here because I want to see your chats. There we go. And I think it's the only way that something would change with Maxx Crosby is if he went to the Raiders and said, it's time for me to go somewhere else. I don't see him doing that at all. He loves being a Raider. I know he hates losing. He actually messaged me that the other day. But there's part of this that I wanted to talk about, and it's the Cowboys side of things. Jerry wanted it to get out that he was reaching out about Maxx Crosby's availability. He wanted that to happen for a variety of reasons, to my understanding. It's one, I want to make sure the league knows that we're open for business. We're looking to add some talent on our side of the ball. I keep getting booted out of this stream over here, and I want to see your guys' chatterooskies. See if that gets us back in. Oh, there we go. He wants to make sure that everybody knows that he is open for business in terms of acquiring talent. If you are a team that is looking to unload maybe somebody, he wants to better his defense. He wanted to make sure that's there. There's another part of this too. I traded Micah Parsons away. My offense is playing outstanding. I have extra capital now. I want to see if I can go do something with that. I want to make sure that Cowboys fans know that, yes, I trade away Micah Parsons, but it doesn't mean I stopped trying to make our team better. It's why he's talking about with this extra money I have, maybe I re-sign George Pickens right now. I think there are people in the building going, whoa, 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 Jerry, pump the brakes. Let's not talk about signing George Pickens midseason. Let's continue to play the way we're playing. Let's see if we can get our defense to play better as a whole, hence why he's looking on that side of the ball. I think they are looking at edge rushers. I think they're looking at defensive tackles. I think they know that there's a thought in their head right now. If we can improve this defense to just be okay, we can maybe be a dangerous threat towards the back end of this season. Dak Prescott is playing like an MVP. And I had a text out of that building a couple of days ago that said, we are terrified we're wasting Dak Prescott this season. That's how good he's playing. And this could be a similar situation to Joe Burrow a year ago, where your defense isn't holding up their end of the bargain and your quarterback's playing so brilliantly and you don't get into the postseason. I think that's why they'd like to be a little bit aggressive up front, see if they could do something to improve this side of the ball. Demo's coming back. I think that's a big part of them. I think that's you ask anybody there, I think that's part of what they want to do in terms of getting better with him getting his window activated. And so yes, they're looking around. They also love picks, and they actually draft pretty well overall over the last several years. So I don't see them giving up a ton of picks. Now, Maxx Crosby is a different story, but you just got to kick the tires. But at the same time, you want the league to know kind of where you stand. And I think that's how Jerry works. He wanted to make sure everybody knows, including Cowboys fans, that he's working his tail off to better this team. What I think is funny, honestly, um, is if he would have signed Micah Parsons, and it was right there in front of him, if they would have just all communicated better to get that deal done, and he traded a third round pick for George Pickens, who's playing like one of the best receivers in football right now, next to his other receiver who is top three, four receivers in the league in CeeDee Lamb. They go and get Javonte Williams from Denver for next to nothing. He's second in the NFL in rushing. He's been outstanding. Jerry'd be like executive of the year right now. He'd be like a front runner for executive of the year, but he couldn't get the Micah deal done, and so now I think it's kind of moving around a little bit in essence of where that's at. All right, what do we have for? We got some chats now. We're back. We're back here. We're chatting. Um, is Brees Hall getting traded? My fantasy team needs to know. We're going to get to Brees Hall right now. If I can move this thing to show more. Um, loving the Colts bandwagoners. I love the Colts too, by the way. I'll jump on the bandwagon. Right now, sidebar before we get to the next thing. The Indianapolis Colts have a legitimate contender, and I go to NFL Honors every year to win every award. Coach of the Year, Shane Steichen, legitimate candidate. Offensive Player of the Year, Jonathan Taylor, legitimate candidate. Rookie of the Year, Tyler Warren, legitimate candidate. MVP, is Daniel Jones an MVP candidate? I think Patrick Mahomes is kind of the front runner there right now with the way this team's turning around in Kansas City. But like they have a chance, and he can't win. By the way, comeback player of the year. They've changed the criteria. You can't just like be like shipped out of New York, go into obscurity for a while, come back, win a starting job, and be a great quarterback. That can't get you comeback player of the year anymore, kind of like a Joe Flacco move. You have to overcome some sort of adversity, illness, injury, things like that. They've changed the criteria for comeback player of the year, if anybody cared. But that's the way the Colts are playing. It's pretty wild to watch. All right, before I get to some other big names, let's see anything the Panthers might do, edge, linebacker do. I could see like the fate of their team has changed a little bit. I know they're looking at that side of the ball just a touch. Well, Micah wasn't worth the money, it seems. Micah had 3 sacks this past week and pretty much won the game for the Packers. Why would you trade Parsons and then get Crosby? That'd be absolutely stupid. Exactly right. You would have to give up the picks to get Max. He is obviously under contract. Really, contract is part of it, but he just got paid. Yes, it's. I gave you the criteria of why this came out. Do you see the Eagles doing anything? Certainly do. I know that's not in my big name, so I'll say that. The Brandon Graham thing was something that they've been talking about for a little while. He's been training for a while. I remember I was at that game at SoFi where he tore his, I believe, triceps, right? And after the game told all of us that he was done for the year. I ended up coming back, I think, for the Super Bowl, right? But when he went down, I remember talking to coaches on that side of the ball. It was, even though he's playing a limited number of snaps, he's our best edge rusher. And at 36 years old, he was their best edge rusher. So they're bringing him back to help on an edge, which they're having issues with. Keep an eye on them still doing something up front on the defensive side of the ball. I still think they're looking at edge players. My understanding is the Brandon Graham move doesn't change the aggressiveness of going out there and getting somebody on the defensive side of the ball. I do think they want to look at Bennett at the cornerback spot before they jump. There's some corners that could be available with a couple of different teams, Reek Woolen, different guys that could be out there available, like maybe like 4 or 5 of them possibly. But I think their emphasis, in my understanding, is more on the edge than at the cornerback spot where that's at right now. Jacoby Myers getting traded. I'll get to that right now of where that's at. We have some Micah stuff. We'll go past that. We already did some of that. A lot of Jacoby Myers talk. So let's get into these other big names. It was interesting because last week, heading into the Week 7 games, if you asked around the league, it was a little more quiet than a lot of people thought in terms of conversations and maybe some kind of preliminary talks about moving and getting some things started between two teams. And that kind of surprised some people. I think it's because some of the teams are at the bottom of the league that are the sellers. It's not the buyers that are slowing anything down. The buyers know what they want right now, right? The contending teams know what they need. The Steelers would like another receiver. The Eagles would like an edge guy. The 49ers would like to add an edge player after the loss of Nick Bosa. Like some of these teams, we know what they're kind of looking for. It's the sellers have to admit, hey, we're in a sell mode. We're going to give up a quality player for draft capital because this season is a lost season. teams are very reluctant to do that. And that's what's slowing this process down a little bit. And that's why more conversations will probably happen closer to the deadline. But what did we see after week 7? We saw the Dolphins were embarrassed. We saw the Jets move to 0-7. We saw the Raiders were shut out. The Titans, obviously, everybody's pretty much available outside of Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward. They'll listen to anybody. Let's start with Trey Hendrickson, the top of that list. He's the guy that everybody's curious about. I get the sense he's not going anywhere. I think Thursday and that win actually kind of solidified that a little bit further and pushing the meter closer towards he's not going anywhere, because the Bengals' entire process and the trade for Joe Flacco is, can we survive, cross our fingers, until Joe Burrow returns in mid to late December if he can, and we're in some sort of position to win a couple of games and get into the dance with our star quarterback. You don't give up your best defensive player to do that. Are the Niners interested? Certainly. Would the Colts be interested in a reunion with Lou Anarumo? Certainly. Would the Eagles maybe be interested? Howie loves to swing big, of course. I just don't see anything happening with Trey Hendrickson right now from the player side or the team side, and I think that might end up kind of sticking. So. Moving on to the Jets players, I think is pretty popular where everybody's at. We'll start with Breece Hall. That was in the chat a bunch. And the injury to Allen plays a part in this. He'd like to stay. We'll see what the situation is with him staying. What I think has changed, and this might change things for Breece Hall a little bit, is it has a feel around the league right now that there's fewer teams interested in running back help than there were maybe to what we thought 2 weeks ago, maybe. And we're going, well, the Chargers are really looking for backs, and the Chiefs are really looking for a running back. I don't get the sense Kansas City's looking for a running back anymore. I don't get the sense that, maybe Omari and Hampton might be a few weeks away, but are the Chargers going to make that move? I don't know. So if the marketplace shifts, what does that do? Then the demand decreases, then the asking price, of teams competing against each other goes down, and then is it worth it? I think the Jets like him. I think the Jets want him to be a part of what they're doing moving forward, but we'll see because they haven't done anything in terms of a contract. I'd also look at Jermaine Johnson off the edge with these teams that are looking for edge help, being somebody that could be potentially available. I think also teams will call on Will McDonald. I think there's a lesser chance that they would part ways with him over Johnson. Michael Carter, when I mentioned corners, he could be somebody that could potentially be available to some of these teams that are maybe looking for a corner. But Breece, I don't know. I'm starting to feel like it's kind of it's there. But it's not, nothing's really gonna happen. I'll stick to the wide receivers because as the market has shifted, it appears, just a feeling, at the running back spot, the wide receiver one seems to still be kind of there, and teams are still looking maybe at potential wide receivers. Jacoby Myers, obviously, his comments yesterday, saying for sure when asked, "Are you still willing to be traded?" He's kind of said, "Yeah, for sure." And he wanted a new contract before the season started. They didn't grant it to him. He asked for a trade then, and it wasn't granted either. He's 28 years old and playing for 10.5 million this year. I could see him potentially being on the move, but at the same time, I'm not sure who they put out there. With Pete Carroll, again, this goes back to the Maxx Crosby thing. He's not looking to get a million picks back. But the point that you could make with Jacoby Myers is the wide receiver market, and the reason why I'm bringing up these players right here in this group is you can get like a third-round pick back for some players in the receiver market, and that's a really quality pick. Even if it's a fourth-round pick, that's a quality pick, and that's why teams would consider it. And we'll see. Jacoby Myers could be possibly on the move. Calvin Ridley is a team that the teams are kind of interested in, and the Titans will get calls on him, certainly. He's owed a little bit of money for sure. There's also, he's kind of a polarizing receiver if you ask about him around the league. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like some people think he can play, some people think he can't. The hamstring injury kind of complicates things a little bit, but it seems like teams are more interested about the defensive side of the ball from the Titans. I keep an eye on Chris Olave and Rashid said his name terribly. Chris Olave, though, they're trying to think about working out a contract. I don't know if they're really there yet, but that's a decision for Kellen Moore to figure out. But I think people are interested in their receivers. I think people are interested in the Saints. I'm not sure if Mickey Loomis is selling anything off. But Jalen Waddle's another name that everybody's kind of curious about with the way things are going in Miami. I would say this. I think he's more of a building block for 2026. He's owed $36 million through 25 and 26. And so it's reasonable for a high-end player, but I think with Tyreek Hill's future, In the injury. I think he's somebody that they'd like, whoever comes in, if somebody else does, he can play in whatever offense it is, and keeping him as a building block might be more of a certainty. But I would say this. Um, there's very few players in the league that are untradeable. Teams will listen on pretty much everybody outside of those select few, and I think you would listen. Is what's going on. All right, let's get in here. Let's talk Myers. We did. I think that's one to definitely keep an eye on. I don't know if I make no sense, but somebody wrote that. Um, oh, I think it's an argument. I'm not part of that. You guys can go ahead and argue. Um, I don't think the Eagles are looking for long range help, just enough to make another Super Bowl run and fill the holes. They definitely do have holes. I think that's why they're taking a heavy look at that opposite corner. Any news on New England? I don't think they're really like fully in the market on anything big. I think the picks are important to them and building this the right way. Obviously, they're playing really good football in the way they're doing it, but we'll see. Eagles cornerback. I think they want to see Bennett. Honestly, I think they made that trade already. Like we're already forgetting that a trade happened for a corner, and I think they want to evaluate that. First, Bills. Everybody's seen if they're going to do a similar thing to what they did a year ago when they got Amari Cooper, and that trade just did not work out because outside help is boundary help is still an issue. Oh, Lamar health. Let's get to that. Didn't practice on Monday. We'll see if he gets out there today. Remember, Lamar's a little bit of a different cat. He could not practice this entire week probably, and still go and play on Sunday. I think they need him on the field on Sunday. I think we're all well aware that there's a good chance he plays on Sunday. I think it's still on track to be that. Monday was essentially like a bonus practice. Most teams are not out there showing you, but they're coming off the bye, essentially where they were at. But keep an eye there. Steelers, they're still looking at a receiver, I think, opposite of DK. I think that'd be something they can look at. By the way, the defense needs to play better. Certainly. Any news on Giants making trades? I think they were looking at receivers, but I don't think they're going to do anything to like break the bank in this essence. Is there somebody in that kind of like next tier down or two that they could possibly look at? We'll see, but that's kind of it. With the Jags part with Brian Thomas Jr., I doubt it. This is just, it's a rough year too for him right now. I don't know what's happening there. It's been bad. Denver may be in the market for offensive lineman or a tight end trade. Is that because they have excess? Is what you're saying? I don't see Denver. I know Justin Shannon's a pretty good player. They're kind of deep there now. Niners on here. I mentioned it. They're still looking for edge help. I think Purdy's headed in the right direction. It just hasn't gone the right way. I don't know if you're looking for injury updates. But Purdy's headed in kind of the right direction. We'll see how this week goes. Max been playing pretty well and getting some money, by the way, 100 grand for each win after the 400 grand he got last week. If he keeps going out there and playing, I think I got my eye on Ricky Pearsall too. Hasn't practiced at all. There's a chance he could go out there, him and Brock, and maybe we'll see. It's kind of like taking it day by day. It's like go out on the field, doesn't feel exactly the way they want it. We'll see. Joe Mixon coming back. That's been very vague and murky for a few reasons. Does Seattle bring back Lockett? That's an interesting one. They moved on from Lockett and DK because they knew JSN was going to be this way. I love the way they run all these two-man concepts with what Clint Kubiak is doing. I don't know if they need to make any sort of changes to the way the offense is working right now. Eagles need Jermaine Johnson. That's an edge. There you go. Cowboys need safety. Anything. Cowboys need some guys to get healthy and play better, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make like a minor move, but they're not going to make anything that's break the bank. I really don't think, just because they love picks and they draft well. Colts, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, now that they're up to this lead out in the AFC and they're playing well, I don't know. I could see them doing something there. Let's go through this New York nightmare real quick and what's going on with Woody Johnson and what he had to say at the owners' meetings when he walked into the hotel and said, I'm not talking, guys," and then talked for a while and kind of threw out there that pretty much all this falls on Justin Fields, and that's where he's putting it. He thinks Aaron Glenn's doing pretty well, hugs him every day. A lot of people I talked to around the league do believe Aaron Glenn has the chops and the makeup to fight through this, even though this is just an absolutely dreadful start at 0-7. I don't think they're making any sort of move at the head coaching spot. But essentially, with everything he said, do you go back to Justin Fields if you're the coaching staff after your owner just annihilated him and said if we could just complete a pass, we'd be okay? And so, I mean, that scathing kind of remarks from Woody Johnson towards Justin Fields, which I will just throw out there. We don't say this enough covering this league. You ask anybody, they'll tell you that Jerome Ford, that's a decent name to think about. he's one of the better human beings in this league. Like, I had a coach tell me once, like, if I was going to buy my daughter a jersey, it'd be a Justin Fields jersey. Like, that's how much I respect him as a human being. He'll handle this the best way possible. I know he will. He handled the situation in Pittsburgh brilliantly when he was benched for Russell Wilson when he was playing. Actually, pretty good. He's not playing very well right now. He's not. I'm not sure why they're not utilizing his legs more, but they're not, and he's not playing well. And I'm not, avoiding that. What I'm curious is Darren Muji is not getting any blame for this at all. When he's the new general manager there, they give him $30 million guaranteed over 2 years. Now, I know why they wanted to do that. They wanted him to feel like he was locked into the spot, have some confidence. A team believes me, go out and play that way. But that's a $10 million guaranteed of his 20 next year, no matter what. Just to put that in perspective, Sam Darnold got $10 million for 1 year from the Vikings last year, played outstanding, right? And then ends up signing that deal with Seattle. He still, I don't think, has as much guaranteed money next year as Justin Fields. So I think that's the part that's wild. And then I was at that game. I got to get moving here. I was at that game in Denver where New York blew it. I took that video of Brian Burns that everybody's watching from the tunnel. That was me and my little thumbs taking that video. It went about as bad in the fourth quarter as you could. The first three quarters was a butt whooping all the way across the board, really. They worked one of the best defenses in football. I think there's a lot of positivity for Jackson Dart. I talked to people there. I mean, he's changing things, canning things at the line of scrimmage, getting them into the right plays. Like, he's not just, going out there and tucking it and running it or giving it to Cam Scatterbo. He found a way to make plays against a really good defense with no receivers. But the reason, some people are upset, obviously, I talked to a defensive coordinator about this. Do you take the best unit of your team with like Thibodeau or Abdul Carter and you take them off the field when the game's on the line? This DC said no, like, no chance. I don't do that, especially with the injuries in my secondary, like when they lost Holland. So regroup. This is a brutal blow for the head coach. You could look at it from Brian Daboll's perspective in two ways. One, this hurts his chances of staying. You can't blow games like this. Two, he's brought in to really help a young quarterback, and he's doing that, and Jackson Dart's playing great. We'll see what ends up kind of happening there. Changes in Miami. Woo! Let's talk about a little here, Chubb or Phillips, because I see there to the Niners. I think I mentioned, kind of bigger names there. I wanted to mention these guys in this group as they're trying to search for answers. They don't have any of them right now, sadly. Things have just not gone well this year in the changes that they wanted to make this offseason. When stars used to have kind of carte blanche in that building, they kind of tightened the reins. And they got rid of some bad apples, and just it's not gone in the right way. Tua's had these comments, and are guys playing for Tua? I think people have a legitimate question about that after everything that's transpired over the last maybe 2 weeks. I think they're in a position to where Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips are available, and I think do they want to make that call? Do they want to make that decision? I think that's when it gets very murky. Because you have a head coach and a general manager that are probably on the hot seat. Let's just say what it is. Do you want to get rid of the players that could be a part of you getting yourself out of this hole? Stephen Ross, I don't think, wants to make a midseason change, but, oftentimes, owners are forced into making a decision when they're into this type of spot. If they can't get out of it, you have to collect your assets for 2026. If you're the head coach or you're the general manager, I want to hold on to Jalen Phillips. I want to hold on to Bradley Chubb because they're going to help me get out of this hole. They're good players. Now it's going to be up to the organization to decide kind of what's best for them in the direction they're headed. And I think November 4th plays a big part in that. If they don't think the coaching staff, the current decision makers can get out of it, then you probably do make these guys available. They're receiving calls. They're not shopping them, to my understanding, but I know people are interested. So does that perception or thought process change over the next couple weeks here, or a little more than a week, and what happens there? But it's not good. And with Tua, I just want to kind of clarify this. He's in a tough spot because Mike McDaniel, if they part ways with him, everything has been designed specifically for Tua from how this offense works. It goes for a lefty from left to right, obviously the opposite of a right-handed quarterback. Schematically, they've done everything for Tua to make him comfortable. They've done everything they can to make him as comfortable as possible. He's guaranteed $54 million next year. He's not going anywhere. So when if a new staff comes in, it's going to be an interesting situation that would be next season about Tua Tagovailoa and the fit and what that staff does to make him fit what they do. I mean, do you eat all that dead money and part ways with him? That's a monstrous number. So I just want to make it clear, it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. $54 million guaranteed in 2026 is a massive number. I think that's just a player to keep an eye on if things continue to shuffle in Miami. If a new staff comes in, what are their plans for Tua? I don't see how you part ways, but we'll see. Um, let's see what we got here. The Browns trade Jerome Ford. They kind of gone with this young backfield. I could see that. Curious on Chuba Hubbard as well. I don't think I mean, they just paid him. And I think they could use both. Commanders news: Jaden Daniels. Keep an eye on the hamstring. 3 big games coming up. I don't know if he plays this week. I think that's a tough one. But the defense hasn't worked out. We're talking about the trade deadline, by the way. That Marshawn Lattimore trade has just not worked out the way that they wanted it to. We'll see what ends up happening there. Could Judy get traded? And they are in a reset, but I don't. I mean, I don't see them trading him. But hey, see if anybody's interested. Um, Did all that for Tua, and he's still. Please tell me Denver is in on wide receivers before the deadline. I wouldn't put anything past what they could be potentially looking at. I did ask somebody, and I'll just say this because I don't know this for sure, and I will have more information on it. I'll dig. I talked to a defensive coach that's been studying Denver in preparation for their game, and he said there's the skill players around Bo Nix are just not good enough. That was his opinion. Like that, I think Sutton's a good player. Skill players are just not good enough. Let's go through Detroit real quick because everybody loves talking about something positive, I guess, right? Man, were they physical. The entire secondary was gone. It didn't matter at all. I do want to just give a quick shout out to Kelvin Shepard, who's running that defense with Aaron Glenn leaving. He's been with Dan Campbell for an eternity. They always knew he was going to be the guy to step in. He's coaching his tail off on that side of the ball with some guys banged up or suspended in the secondary. They got more physical on the defensive line. They get McNeil back, which is huge. Aiden Hutchinson was all over the place. Maybe not numbers, but if you watch the game, moving quarterbacks off their spots constantly. They played great. And then my buddy Albert Breer at SI came up with brought up a pretty good point about the draft a couple of years ago. And in the first round, when everybody kind of was wondering what the Lions were doing when they took Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round, a running back and a off-the-ball linebacker. I think they were just ahead of the curve. I love that Albert brought that up because when you look at it, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, like James Cook, these guys have become what the running back position is. Great pass catchers, can really have explosive plays in the run game, and that's Jahmyr Gibbs. And then the linebacker spot with the way the tight end is being used in today's NFL and the condensed formations of receivers that are number ones playing off the tight end and inside the numbers, like that position is becoming so valuable, and he was all over the field. So I think that was a pretty cool thing to kind of bring up there. What else do you guys have? Does Baltimore have a shot to land a decent pass rusher? Whew, I don't even know if it's like, I mean, I guess they need a pass rusher. What they do feel like they're missing, even though they thought they had a great roster, but if you really ask them to really critique it now, they'll say, like, we lost kind of the beef in the middle of the defensive line. That's always been something that they've been able to do, but that's been missing. Is there anybody on the inside that could potentially happen? Arden Key or Shelby Harris to KC? I love that that was brought up because everybody's kind of talking about potentially a running back landing for the Chiefs. I think they're looking at defensive line more. I think they have some young players that they want to see if they develop, but at the same time, I think Joe Cullen's really good on that defensive line as a coach. But I could see them trying to make a move there. Brett Veach can get aggressive at times, and I think this is an offense that he's seeing Patrick Mahomes play maybe better than we've ever seen him play. Honestly, that's how good it looks in their eyes. And Rashee Rice coming back. In a weak AFC, do we make a move to help our defensive line? I could see something like that happening, and them not breaking the bank, but getting like a really good player. Shelby Harris is an interesting kind of name there. Are the Steelers actually looking for a number 2 wide receiver? I think they're curious for sure. Any dark horse players that could be traded? Ooh, that's a good one. Without any preparation, I'm kind of, let's see. Will the Bills get a safety? Bills need to get healthy. I think that's a big part of this too. Who do you think the Steelers are going to get? I think they're looking. I don't think they're going to like get some sort of like monster name, but opposite of DK. But I think yards after the catch are a big deal. I'd love to see Waddle in that offense the way they're playing right now. I don't see it, but I just as a fan, I'd like to see that. These 2 quarterbacks. I'm almost out of time, but I wanted to mention what's going on because I asked. The Microsoft Copilot. I asked this question in preparation of today's show. Has more than one second-year quarterback ever made the All-Pro team in the same season? I was kind of it's nice that I can do that and just ask. Answer's no. Copilot says no. Second-year players to make the All-Pros, Dan Marino, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Drake May has a chance to do that, guys. He is playing outstanding. He's playing not only like the best quarterback out of these second-year quarterbacks, honestly, better than Caleb, better than Jaden Daniels, better than anybody. He's playing one of the best quarterbacks in football. I mean, he has a chance maybe to be in a conversation. He's been outstanding with Josh McDaniel, and I think that the marriage there is, we shouldn't understate it. It's been great. He's been the reason they're winning games. He really is. Third down, outstanding. Under pressure, outstanding. He's completing 75% of his passes on third and fourth down. It's been unreal. Bo Nix, on the other hand, man, the positives, absolute gamer. These comebacks are insane. He plays his butt off in the fourth quarter of these games against Philly, against the Giants. There are some issues, though, certainly with Bo. I think he's going through some second-year growing pains, if you ask around. He needs to continue to fight through those. There's actually a book on him now. Needs to be better downfield. Just needs to be. He is, when you look at the metrics, arguably the worst downfield passer in football. Short game, awesome. Super accurate, can beat like 85% of his passes under 10 yards. You go downfield, he's struggling. And Sean Payton, if you ask coaches, is scheming guys open. He is. It's just been an issue. All right, let's just see if there's a couple here. Bears news. I wanted to mention this with the Bears real quick. What Ben Johnson was able to accomplish during the bye week, and in changing the course of, and I don't know who they played as defenses, but still changing the course of the way they run the football. 145 and then 222, and even ran the football when everybody in the building knew they were going to run it. That is making life so much easier on Caleb Williams in this offense, and I think the buy-in is massive of what they've done, and they're turning the football over. It's been super fun to watch what they're doing there. Crosby, worth it to get to Detroit. Man, imagine Maxx Crosby playing in Detroit. Does anybody else have an idea? So Bo Nix is the new Alex Smith. Yeah, except that last year Alex played before Mahomes took his job. He was chucking the ball downfield. Let me just ask you this. Who wants to see Maxx Crosby on a contender? Like playoff football, closing out games. I mean, I do. Why did the Giants keep Bowen after that debacle? Yeah, that was, trust me, being in that locker room, there were a lot of side conversations between players on the defensive side of the ball about what went on and what transpired. Now, you could look at it two ways. I don't know exactly what those conversations are. I can't walk up to them and they're going to tell me. But did we drop 8 and that was an issue and we didn't like the play call? Or did we drop 8 and not execute the play? Like, that's on us. Like, so I just think, yeah, they played great against the Broncos offense for 3 quarters and then just, brutal. There's a lot of blame to go around of that, of course. Anything else here? Overthrows are terrible for Knicks. Yeah, there's guys that are open. There certainly are. We'll see what ends up happening. Hey, thank you. Nobody ever says thank you very often. I don't know if that's to me, but I'm going to take it. Do you see Njoku or Andrews being moved? Browns have the rookie. Yeah, Fannon's been awesome, by the way. This is the last one we'll answer here. Absolutely not. Max needs to stay in Vegas, damn it. I do love seeing him in a Raiders uniform. I just hope the man gets to play in some meaningful games. He's just an absolute monster on the field and a great dude. This thing about Njoku and David and Andrews, I would say Njoku has a greater chance of getting moved. Certainly, I think that's the mindset of the Browns right now. I would say him and Shelby Harris, who's mentioned somewhere else here, could be guys that could potentially be on the move there from that team. Fannin catches everything. They really like him. I know Joe Flacco actually, talking to people, when he left Cleveland, he kind of mentioned to some people that he really liked Fannin. I could see that being more than Andrews. I think the Ravens are in a position like, we're in like a win or our season's over type of mode over the next several weeks, and I think you need all your guys back. I understand the question, certainly, because you have Isaiah Likely as the future, and Andrews' future is obviously contract-wise too up in the air after this year, but I just kind of see the Ravens being in a different position of trying to make sure that they can accomplish as much as they can. We went way long, and I think maybe I'll just spend more time answering your guys' questions if that's what you want. Always just let me know in the chat. And maybe that we'll spend some more time there and a little less on my topics. And we'll try to interact as much as possible. So appreciate all of you. I'll be here pretty much every day, all of next week, trying to talk a lot of these trade rumors and what's going on around the league. So we'll try to do that the best we can. Even though you ignored my question, thank you for answering. I'm scrolling through. I'll try to find it next time, best I can. All right, everybody, take it easy. See you soon.